the jealous guys, but this one takes a cake, and he wants to murder me, but I've never seen his face, but if he wants it, tell him bring it on. And I'm not gonna be scared at all.
Hi, and welcome to the Joe Dirty Show. I'm your host, Joe Dirty, and with me this week is the owner of Cass Records, a Dirt Bombs drummer, a Metro Times scribe, and the 2003 Rolling Stone College Journalism Award winner, Mr. Ben Blackwell.
Hey Joe, how's it going?
How you doing, Ben?
Good.
So Ben, why would you start a record label in this day and age of internet, MP3s, and all that crap?
I started a record label. To me, it was the next logical step for my musical fandom. You know, I bought lots of records and listened to them, and I thought that was getting in and releasing records was just the next logical step.
You've been a fan for a long time. I've seen you like hanging out at the show since you've been like 14, like,
Yeah.
sneaking in and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, do you think it's like important for like the smaller record labels to exist alongside the bigger record labels?
Yeah, because if you don't have smaller record labels, you know, they're not out there. If they're not out there finding talent and putting out stuff,
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to have bigger record labels finding the smaller bands. So it's kind of like a baseball farm team system. You know, the smaller labels kind of help bring what needs to be known up to the medium-sized labels.
So are you saying you're in cahoots with the big labels right from the get-go?
I'm not saying I'm in cahoots, but I'm also not saying, I would say that, you know, I've put out records by bands that have gone on to be on bigger major labels. So.
It's true. Speaking of which, how do you, you know, what kind of money does it take to like get the ball rolling and everything off the ground?
Well, you know, if you start off just putting out 7-inch vinyl, as little as $500.
Oh, really?
You can start putting out, you know, a couple hundred copies of a 7-inch, and that's all you really need. You don't need to start off doing anything much grander or bigger than that. I mean, so it's a good mid-level starting place.
Yeah, it would get a little bit ahead of yourself, actually. Yeah,
Right.
I know what you mean. So when you, you know, you're interested in a band and you want to put a record out with them, how do you go about like picking the bands that are right for your label?
Well, the Dirt Bombs, you know, they tour a lot, so I get to see, you know, all across the country, all across the world. I get to see lots of bands. You know, I have lots of friends too, people who might word of mouth kind of tell me I should check something out. And I read lots of magazines and kind of try to keep my finger on the pulse. So, you know, a combination of those three things, I think I usually find something, you know, in the end, it's basically I just want to put out stuff that I like, music I like.
So I've noticed like a large number of your releases are Detroit artists. Is that important to you?
Well, yeah, just, I mean, just living in Detroit, first off, I think
It sort of lends itself to it.
yeah, it leads me to knowing more about what's happening in Detroit and being kind of in touch with what kind of bands there are. And so yeah, I definitely prefer, you know, like doing Detroit bands.
And didn't you do a little time working for Dave Buick,
Yes.
doing Italy Records?
Yeah, for a while when you know, still in high school, I did lots of mail order and distribution work for Italy.
For people that don't know, the Italy Records put out the first 2 White Stripes singles, which launched their career.
Yes.
And Ben had no small hand in that, like packing all the records. So Ben, if you were to get your record made, where would you get these vinyl records pressed?
There's a pressing plant here in Detroit called called Archer Records. It's been around since 1965. It's family run. It's super laid back, super low key, and they're just all great people to work with. And I'm super excited. Love dealing with them.
Do you know if they dealt with like any of the labels from the Detroit's past?
Yeah, they've you know, they pressed Motown singles back in the '60s and everything, you know, the original techno records in the '80s. They've done it all. They're, you know, they're really great label.
Wow, that's cool. Well, we're gonna have to take a break here in a minute for public service announcement or something like that. It had nothing to do with me and the show per se, but I'm sure you'll like it. You know, I'm sure it'll be informative and interesting.
Hey Detroit, you're invited to join FM 98 WJLB for Coats for Kids, November 3rd and 4th at Hoop City Grill in Southfield. Come and make a donation or bring a coat or two. Brand new or gently used, please. We need your help to keep children from being cold this winter, with special appearances from Marcus Houston, Sierra, Pretty Ricky, and more. So join us. Log on to fm98wjlb.com for more information. Make your donations to Coats for Kids. We're FM 98 WJLB.
Every day, hundreds of animals roam the streets in constant danger of traffic, predators, and starvation. That's where Big Dog Rescue comes in. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to the rescue of dogs that are abused, abandoned, or in other bad situations and help place them into loving homes. But we need your help. Please support our cause by calling 800-505-1771 to give generously or to inquire about the joys and benefits of pet adoption. Big Dog Rescue. We save as many as we can.
And we're back with the Joe Dirty Show, and my guest this week is Ben Blackwell. Ben, how does one go about getting distribution for the records that you put out?
Well, nowadays there's not so much importance placed on distribution. You can do so much, from your home with, a handful of email addresses and just some time. You can deal with small regional distributions, as well as, kind of bigger independent ones that'll get your record into stores and kind of just, buy a handful of what you need or of what you had.
Do they go on a record basis, or do they just pretty much take everything you put out at once? Most
distribution places deal on a record-to-record basis.
Okay.
Something might not fit into their specific genre, but the next one probably will. So they kind of play it by ear.
And now, is it important to have name recognition of an artist for a distributor to want to pick up your product?
Not necessarily. I think at this point, for me, most distribution will probably, if it's something they'd never heard of or it's a band's first release, they'll just take a handful off the bat just by knowing what I've done before. And
so
that
they go
works.
off of credibility of your person.
More recognition on my behalf than on a band, in some cases.
Promotion-wise, is it important to get a bunch of posters made and advertised in every magazine like you see some record labels do, or is that just throwing money away?
It might work for some labels, but for me, I'm just mainly doing 7-inch singles. Those kind of sell themselves. All you really need to do is let people know that they're out there, and you don't need posters. You don't need anything more than that. All you really need is to.
What's the best way you get your word out there?
I have an email list that I kind of notify people who subscribe to it that there's a new record out. There's a handful of genre-specific message boards that I'll post to and say, this record's out. Here's how you buy it. And I think word of mouth kind of takes a lot from there too. And all that kind of together usually, helps me get rid of the records.
Do you have any advice that you would give somebody just starting out that you wish you knew then that you know now?
Well, definitely don't overestimate how many records you can think you sell. It's better to sell yourself short. You can always repress a record, and you can never take a record back to the pressing plant.
Don't make 20,000 copies and stuck selling them out of your trunk.
Right, exactly.
Like you hear people do all the time.
Right.
I know. Ben, I'm curious to how to get a hold of Cass Records.
I have a website, cassrecords.com. And that's where I do most of my distribution, and most people contact me.
So www.cassrecords.com?
Correct.
Great. Well, this week we've talked to Ben Blackwell. Tune in next week and weeks after that where we'll no doubt be talking to several more people about stupid stuff. So I'd like to thank you all for tuning into the Joe Dirty Show, and we'll see you next time.
Well, I heard of jealous guys, but this one takes a cake, and he wants to murder me, but I've never seen his face. But if he wants to tell him, bring it on.